Ladies and gentlemen, one second. Just throwing everything into LinkedIn for a sec because they still won't give me a live stream feed. You guys know the deal. So I'm pretty excited about today's one. Firstly, welcome everyone. Hopefully everyone's still having a fantastic week. I know our week is going fantastically well. You got to just pick the wins, and one of the things I'm super grateful for today is how good some of our I'm not going to say some, all of our clients are. We have some amazing clients. We just had a meeting with one of them just then. I love that our clients are open and honest and comfortable talking about their problems and their business and how we can be of help to them. So, I think that's always a good bellwether on whether you're doing what you do well or and properly is when the people you work with, you are genuinely in partnership with them. And I really do feel like that sometimes with our clients. We're generally in the trenches together. All right, so today's guys, website week, red flags to look out for. Everyone really enjoyed my SEO red flags video last week. If you didn't get a chance, for a bit of context, I've been doing these videos once a day, every day during the week, and I'm planning to do them for 100 days. So this is going to be fun and enjoyable. But I'm going to talk a little bit about red flags to look out for when you're engaging someone or you're looking at. We talked a little bit about expectations the last couple of days ago, but I'm going to talk about also what to look out for if you're with your website to see if it's been done properly or to see if you need to get a second opinion on it. So as always, guys, if you've got any questions, just let me know in the chat and I'll endeavor to answer them. For you as I see them. So let's talk about some red flags for a sec. So, like I said earlier in the week, there's different standards when it comes to websites. Obviously, we have defined processes, and I spoke earlier in the week about what to look for and what questions to ask a web designer. A lot of those questions should eliminate these little red flags, but I'm going to just get straight into it because I can only be on for like 15 minutes today. And the first thing I want to mention as a red flag is quality assurance. So obviously during the process, there's plenty of stages where this QA process is going to be done. But when you're reviewing, generally what will happen is you will sign up to build a website. They will give you some designs and then you'll get revisions, right? The revisions are generally where the rubber meets the road. That's when people decide where the changes are. And most companies will give you 2 revisions or something like that. We generally just try and get it so close to finishing that there's only ever a few little tweaks to do, and that seems to serve us well. But most companies will give you a few revisions. They'll do all the revisions. That's when you're expected to do your own diligence on the site, and that's generally when the first red flag arises with the company you're working with. Unfortunately, it's right at the end. You can ask questions to stop this from happening, but generally those red flags pop at the end. The first thing I would be suggesting you look at when you're doing this diligence period is how much attention to detail they paid. If this is the final deliverable and they're asking you to do diligence on it, they should have done diligence on it themselves. So if you're picking up spelling errors, grammar errors, or spacing issues or anything like that, it means they haven't done their own QA, and they're basically expecting you to do that, and then they're relinquishing responsibility and putting it on you, which is bullshit. So that's a first red flag with me. If you're working with someone and they get you to do revisions, check for revisions, and they've missed simple stuff, that's generally a sign that the website has been rushed. Because if they haven't spent the time to do their diligence and give you a product that they're happy to launch, if you had said yes, go ahead, the website should be ready to launch there and then. And look, you're always going to pick up little bits and pieces. That's the nature of the beast. You'll always pick up the odd spelling error or something like that. You can't, you got to remember, and this is where I would cut some web designers slack. We spend 120 to 150 hours at a time looking at the same website, the same pictures, the same people. Sometimes it all just blurs into one. So if we miss a couple of little bits and pieces here that are just oversights, that happens. But I'm talking about more fundamental stuff titles being different sizes or different fonts being used in different areas. Just something where someone hasn't gone page by page with a discerning eye and picked apart the website. And like I said, part of our process is it goes through Obviously, Cam's the operations manager of business, so he does the initial checks everyone's work. Then it goes to peer review. So we basically post it in our Slack channel, and we get our writers especially to have a look at it because they have very, very high attention to detail, because they're just writing all day. So they come in here, and Dan, our editor-in-chief, he picks the guts out of websites. He'll take screenshots and say, oh, this spacing's a bit weird, things like that. Obviously, then our creative director does the final sign-off on us as a team, and that's Will. And then what we do is a final check is I use Margaret. Big shout out to Margaret. She's probably the most underappreciated person in the whole team. It's my mother-in-law, stepmom. Obviously does it out of the goodness of her heart, but she has an incredibly amazing attention to detail. And she's like our final checks and balance. So as the website comes through, it goes through to Margaret. Margaret generally sends us 20 things that we haven't seen, fix them up. Then we know when they go to the client, it's like pretty much ready to launch, and they're just doing diligence. And that's why we don't have many revisions. So that would be the first thing to check, is that if you're building a website and the attention to detail is not there, and it all starts at the very beginning. Like if you get a proposal and there's spelling errors in it, or grammatical errors, or like there's like little things like the date hasn't been changed on the actual proposal itself, it's generally a good sign of things to come. If someone doesn't have the attention to detail to change a photo or change a date on a proposal, then there's a good chance they're going to miss that stuff when the rubber meets the road and they actually have to do their building of the website itself. So that's the first thing. Red flag for me would be, not only the revision stage, simple errors, but also at the start and all the way through the process. Second part of the second red flag for me, if I was in a building, getting a website built, would be communication. If the people I'm working with don't communicate or don't reply to your emails within 24 hours, or don't pick up your phone calls if you call them, that's a big red flag to me. It means that one or two things is happening. Either the company you're working with is extremely busy and they're probably not going to give the website the time it deserves. And you're like, look, we're all tardy at work. Everyone has bad days when it comes to replying and communicating. But generally, if it takes over a day for someone to get back to you just to let you know something simple, then either they're either too busy, or B, they're acting for someone else in a outsourcing relationship. That's generally what the other sign is. So like if you're working with an agency that just outsources the whole start to finish to India, say for instance, and they have to basically take your email, wait for India to reply, and then reply back, that's generally a sign of what you're doing. And I want to qualify this. There is nothing wrong with outsourcing. I think it's gotten a bad rap, and it's important. Like here, like I said, I have 8 staff in the office here with us. But I also have 5 of the team are in the Philippines as well. We have 8 in the office and 5 in the Philippines. And Von and Ben, that help with web design, they're not there to design the site. Like we design the site. Will, the creative director, puts all the creative vision in it. Can does all the technical, but they're there to help, fill in the gaps and labor basically. But I love them. Von's been with me for 2 years now, 2.5 years. He's treated like family. He's got T-shirts. He's effectively might as well, if he wasn't living in the Philippines, he'd be living here. And he's probably paid more than most. He's probably paid as much as most Aussies are. We pay Von $14.50 US an hour, which works out to be almost $20 an hour. I believe in paying people fairly for the work they do, and Von's work is incredible. So, there's a common misconception about that, but it's where you run into trouble is when you outsource the whole thing from start to finish and relinquish control. So we're still, firstly, our Von, Ben, they're based in the Philippines, but they work full time for us. They don't work for anyone else. They work the same hours as us. So they're effectively, work under our, they're employed by us. But it's with that, the full creative control stays within the agency. All the checks and balances stay within the agency. We do all of that still Cam basically that's why he's operations manager, to make sure that the output that we're getting is up to a high enough standard. And Cam keeps control of that. it's when you are outsourced. It's when you speak to an agency. They're like, "Yep, we build websites," and then they basically take your money and then go to India and go build this website. And then the only time they're involved in the process is when they get it back to give to you. That's when you run into problems, and that's where you're paying $500 for a website. It costs a lot of money to build websites professionally. And people don't realize that. So that's the second red flag I'll be looking at is communication. If it takes too long, if the feedback loop is too long when you're communicating them, that's obviously a red flag. The third red flag is probably not something that you would check personally. It's more like you have to kind of know what you're looking for. But again, use other people in the industry to do diligence on this. Is how the actual site, the functionality of the site's been done. So with everything, there's an easy way and a hard way to do. There's an easy way to do stuff, and then there's a hard way to do stuff that is better generally. So, like for instance, what I mean by that is like, let's say for instance, you've got Google Analytics on your site. You're tracking it. The easy way is to just use a plugin to inject the code into the header or like inject the code using a plugin. But what that does is it adds an extra plugin, adds an extra vulnerability to the site, it adds an extra, slows the site down. The right way to do that is to actually add it into the header text manually and do it that way. You don't, or put it into a tag manager, but that way you don't add an extra plugin to the site and you don't do this. And plugins are important. There's some things that plugins are better for, like we always install Yoast plugins so we can change meta titles quickly and efficiently, things like that. But I find a lot of designers, to cut cost and to cut man hours, will use plugins to build in solutions that aren't readily available. That could be done manually, but it's easier with a plugin because someone's done all the hard work. Nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it just every plugin creates a vulnerability on your site, which can be taken advantage of by hackers, and it also slows down your site, because even if you deactivate that plugin, the code is still lingering on the site. So just something else to be aware of when you're talking to companies that do websites. The other thing that I would be really conscious about when building a website is the mobile side, the mobile responsiveness. There's a lot of companies out there that say they build mobile responsive sites. That is an inherent design of a lot of builders and a lot of frameworks. So like if you're using WordPress and with a thing like Elementor, it has an inherent amount of mobile responsiveness as part of that. And I'm going to use gyms as a good example of this, and I'm just going to share my screen. This is a red flag to me because again, it's like I'm big on quality of work and putting in effort. And you can kind of tell the people that aren't putting in effort based on what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do to get a result. So let me just bring up my screen for here for a sec, and I'll go back to Jim's fencing because obviously it's my baby and it's one of the more recent ones we've done. So Jim's website out of the box, if you go to mobile, was reasonably mobile responsive. It had I'm just going to go responsive here and just like manually switch it. It had like, it did this where like, depending on the size of it, it didn't have breaks. But the biggest problem with mobile is that it's not always mobile. It never responds the way you think it's going to respond. So what we have to do when we build a site is basically go through the whole mobile site and look at how it lays, look at how everything presents, look at the fonts and everything. Because with a website, you can actually change you can change things on mobile and then change things on computer. Because that would actually be more like that. You can actually change things on mobile and change things so that how to display on mobile and then change how it displays on computer. So you can actually do that to make them different. So what we do is we go through the mobile version of the site and like change sizes of fonts, change headings, change where the pictures display, change the part of the picture that displays. So it looks better on mobile. And that's, to me, true mobile responsiveness. Now, what a lot of companies do is they'll just lean on the mobile responsiveness built into the framework they're working with themselves, and then just leave it. So what ends up happening, and I'm just going to pick a random website here. Let's go WA Sheds. I don't even know if this is a website, but I'm tipping it is. And let's see if they, okay, yep, okay. So this is a pretty standard looking site. Let me just share my screen again. It's a pretty standard looking site. So WA Sheds. So if I go to mobile now and look at, what it should be on mobile, no, that's not displaying properly. Let me, WA Kitchens. Let's just pick a random site off Google and hopefully I'll find one that explains, wow, that's really odd that that's coming up. Kitchen Capital. Let's see what they say. So these have had an SEO work on it. You don't put that in there. And let's see if what they've done on mobile. Oh yeah, I know these guys have done it. So that's not a good example either. Let's try and find one where mobile, these guys might. No, they've done a pretty good job of that too. Oh, these guys are making me all look silly. Let's try this one here. Okay, so this one here. So, on PC, oh man, I'm not finding a great example here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's try this one here. Okay, so on mobile, this on PC, this looks really good. It probably looks good on mobile too, but you see on PC, this looks pretty good. Again, it maybe not be it's not my cup of tea, but I'm sure they get lots of business. Now, if we go to mobile, yeah, you can see. So I know that this one's been optimized for mobile too. So in this space, this would be a competitive industry because all the people working on this Rubik's, they've done a pretty good job. But you'll see the websites I'm talking about, like they'll be missing headings, like the headings won't be spaced right on a mobile phone. And you got to remember 60% of the traffic you get is from mobile. So it's pretty important. So I would be keeping an eye. I would be like, when I'm asked to do my diligence on a website, like for revisions, I'd be going on your mobile phone, your wife's mobile phone or husband's mobile phone, an iPhone, and just looking up the website. So making sure that it looks right on mobile. And I would argue that it looking right on mobile is probably more important than looking right on computer these days. So it needs to be right for mobile. And like I said, there's a difference between being mobile responsive and mobile responsive. And a lot of that is good designers will probably build for mobile first. We don't necessarily do that, but we basically build a second website or highly modify the original website to work on mobile phones. And you'll see all of our client sites. If I just look, all of our client sites are all mobile responsive. It's just par for the course. 60% of the traffic's there. So I'm going to finish this one up here, guys. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you want me to do a bit of a video on your website, run through it, give you my opinion, I'm also happy to do that. I mentioned that last time. The reason I'm doing these videos is because I don't like seeing business owners get ripped off. It's really starting to upset me. And the only way I can do anything about that and change that is if I contribute to the good side, and help business owners get better educated on what they should be looking for when they go to market, so they can make better decisions. So, guys, thanks once again. I'm going to cut this one short today. I've got to keep moving, but thanks once again, and I look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow. I'm going to try and tee up an interview tomorrow, and I'm going to get someone else, a couple of designers, to come on and talk about their experiences and what they think people should be looking for. So try not to miss out on that one because it's going to be a killer. And I'll talk to you guys all tomorrow. Thanks, guys.